And I went to Bill Watts, and because he was hiring anybody at the time, and I started learning the trade, and I got bigger, and then I went to Florida from there, and it went on and on.
And Bill Watts, I mean, he was already an established wrestler, big,
Well, he had owned Oklahoma territory, and then he took over the Louisiana end of it from Leroy McGirt. So he was needing all kinds of talent to fill these shows. That's why we were taking guys like me or what he could to fill the cards to get things going. And so then I got my chance to come in and work every night and learn and then get bigger. And so when I left Louisiana, let's see, I started, like I said, I weighed 189, and by the time I went to Florida, I probably weighed about 2.25. Then I kept going, it's got bigger and bigger and better in the ring. And so there was the difference. That's what made the difference, Yeah. I looked the part for TV then, I think he respected the fact that I was an athlete and I stayed in shape. But back then, Bill Watts was just, he was an asshole. Everybody's like, he had a lot of, I'm sure, pressure on him running Louisiana and Oklahoma and all these guys, but he's always been an asshole and he always will be. You heard it from me, Bill, okay? But anyway, I tell you one thing about this fella, okay? And you probably heard this before. He is a genius in the wrestling business as far as drawing money. Okay, he ain't the nicest fella, and he ain't, I say he's an asshole. He's not, I've seen worse than him, believe me. He's not the nicest fella in the world, but he does know this business. And it wasn't a respect thing. It was like, I'll put it to you like this. Here's what it was, okay? Even though I was working, I was getting bigger and all that. And there was not just me. There was like Larry Booker that ended up being the Moondog, in New York, WWE. Just one name after the other was all in the mix too, trying to make it. They were all young guys, right? It wasn't that he didn't disrespect me or respect me. It was just that your help, man. You're working for me, and he didn't take the time, for you. Like I was wrestling one time. I remember we did a show. I think it was Tulsa, and we had to be at TV the next morning at 8 o'clock for 2 tapes. And then from there, we had to drive to Houma, Louisiana, which is 200 miles away. Well, it was 360 after we left Tulsa to Shreveport. So we got about 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours or whatever for. Then you got to be ready for TV. So we're making one of those trips. And this particular time, I had to get a room because I came off the top rope and I didn't know at the time I busted the bursa sac under my kneecap. And I got it. I couldn't stand up. I'd get sick, almost pass out. And so finally, I was trying to make TV, and I kept standing up and getting dizzy and almost passed it. So I called the assassin, Jody Hamilton, which was the booker for Bill Watts at the time, at the TV station, and said, brother, I don't know, Jody. I'm just a kid. I said, I'm trying to make it, sir, but man, I can't. I'm getting sick and dizzy, and my knees, all it was like just huge, I couldn't hardly stand it. He goes, well, hold on, man, let me tell Bill. And he went and came back and said, Bill said, either get your ass here or go home to Houston and don't come back. That was the message. So I made it over there, and Michael Hayes gave me a pill. I don't remember what it was, but I made the 2 tapes.
He fixed you right up.
He fixed me right up. But Bill Watts didn't give a damn. I'm telling you.
And for his reputation, you mentioned earlier about him being a genius, and
yes.
It's funny, like when you were in that territory, you look at that almost a few years later, and every single person almost was taken and was used in WWF.
Everybody. I know. Bill was the one that put the Grappler gimmick together for me. It was his idea, not mine. They needed a hot heel. They had used a guy named Dr. X years before. They had do the loaded boot, the whole gimmick, a lot of years before. And he said, can you wear a mask? They'd seen me wear a mask a couple times in Atlanta. And I said, yeah. And so Bill said, get the loaded boot. And that was his total idea, The name was mine. I came up with the name, and I stole it from Don Kernoodle. That's a good story, too. When I first started, like from Amarillo, I got fired. Went to Louisiana. I was still a kid. Then to Florida. From Florida to up to the Crockett's in North Carolina, South Carolina. Then from there, I think I went to Stu Hart in Canada and all these places, right? And then finally, my wife, my first wife, was from Charlotte, North Carolina. And so I'd had enough. I said, I've been doing this almost 4 years. I hadn't made it on top. Hell with it. I'm going to go back home to Houston. My dad had construction, a couple crews going. I'm going to try to learn that and make a living, and, just enough's enough. And so I said, I'm going to go work Charlotte one last time to let her visit her folks and all before we go all the way back to Texas. So I took her there, and they said they'd give me a good 8-month run, and I was just in the middle of the card. And it just happened that I was over in Norfolk, Virginia, and I was walking. I went to the gym because we had a show that night. We're at the hotel, and I went to the gym, and I come back after eating, and I'm walking down the hall, and Gene Lewis, another wrestler, had the door open of his room, and he sees me go by. He goes, "Lenny, come here, come here." And I said, "What, Gene?" He goes, "I got Buck Robley on the phone. He wants to talk to you." And he goes, he says, I said, "Okay, all right." And I really didn't know Buck that well at the time. I've heard of him, but he goes, "Hey, kid, listen, can you wear a mask?" He said, "Look, here's what we're looking for. We need a top heel that can wrestle. I mean, wrestle his ass off. And I heard you can do that." I said, "I ain't too bad at it." He goes, and he said, "But can you wear a mask?" And I said, "Yeah, I wore one in Atlanta, this and that." They called me the Challenger. So I just do jobs on TV for Ole Anderson. But anyway, so then I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, okay." He goes, "Well, what's your name? What do you call yourself?" I said, and now you want to hear the Cronulla? Cronulla. So the story, here's how I got the name from Cronulla. Right? I go like this. I go, "Hey, Don Cronulla," me and him was riding down the road, right? Like I had 2 nights before doing a show. And we just got to talking on the way back. He said, "One of these days, I'd like to wrestle with a mask." Because he said, I'd like to wrestle with a mask and just be a wrestler and call myself the Grappler. I said, "Why do you want to be called the Grappler?" He goes, "Well, that's a pretty good name." Well, he said, "Because it's like Greek, I don't know, for wrestling or something like that." He goes, "It just sounds cool." I said, "Yeah." Well, when Robley asked me that, that's the first thing that came to my head. I called myself the Grappler. He goes, "Hey, that sounds pretty good." Don Cornell still cusses me every time he sees me. He says, "You owe me residuals, you asshole. You've been stole my name for all these years."
He wants a percentage.
But that's how that happened. But then when I got to Louisiana, I knew nothing about the loaded boot before I got there. He goes, "We need you to get a boot made." And he explained it to me. Thank God Clifford, the bootmaker here in Houston, he could make anything at the time, And so he was one of the legendary bootmakers, made it for everybody in the business, right here in Houston, Texas. But so he made the boot for me, and then I came out and did that. But I've seen a guy at a show just the other night, and a guy was showing me a picture of the Shreveport, where the old arena we used to wrestle at, and they had a stage in the back, and now they had a curtain drawn all the way across. You could slip behind it and sneak down there and go see, the good guys and see the bad guy see the good guy. But if Bill Watts knew you did that, your ass was fired. I mean, you were fired. And so we all knew that. But every once in a while we'd do it anyway. And so at this particular time, I had been there about 6 weeks, okay, and we're still trying to get this Grappler thing over, okay, and so we're at Shreveport on a Friday, and Bill Watts never came to that show, but he was sitting at the end of the stage down there, and all of a sudden Orndorff, Paul Ordnorff, which I was wrestling that night in the semi, pops his head. "Lenny, come here." I go, "What are you doing over here, man? You get fired, dude." He goes, "I need to tell you something." I go, "What?" He goes, "Bill told me he's here to watch you and watch your match. If he don't like what he sees," he goes, "he wants to put the North American title on the top heel. He wants to put it on you. But if you don't impress him tonight," he said, I'm gonna get him out of here and find somebody to handle it. He said, "This match is gonna count on it." He said, "Give it hell, buddy." Thank God for Paul Ordnorff for doing that. I said, "Paul, just do me a favor. Listen to me. Let me call the whole thing. Either I make it or I don't." He said, "Okay." And that, 2 weeks later, I had the North American title. And that was Bill Watts'. That's the way he did business. He knew how to call it, and he got over. Got over good. Man. Really good, yeah.
So he put you in that position with Paul Orndorff. What was it like working with a young
Paul?
Orndorff at the time?
Paul was like Yeah, he was stiff, okay? But Paul was, you just had to know, like a lot of the old timers would complain about it because he was new and he was off, he thought he'd come off the wall or something, but I was the same way at the time. I never had much of a problem with Paul. I had good matches with him, but you never knew where he's coming from. You better keep your eye on him at all times. Because, one time, he just decided to start, he went to a couple of karate classes. I mean, I don't know what that was for. And I'm standing in the ring, seriously, in Lake Charles, Louisiana. And he comes to the ring, and he jumps over the top rope. People's all cheering. And he starts kicking, like side kicking. And I was still yelling at the fan. He kicked me right in the nuts. The match even started. I folded and fell off. It knocked him breath. Couldn't catch my breath. I cussed him for everything you could think of when I got back in the ring. He goes, "Sorry, brother." After that, the karate shit stopped. No more karate. Hello, folks. This is a Grappler right here at Title Match Network. Let me tell you something. You're going to be seeing a lot of me. And you know what? We're going to bring all kinds of stories to you. But if you got any questions, subscribe here. We'll bring you the answers and tell you every story you want to hear. And believe me, when I get through telling you, you will say the greatest story ever told on Title Match Network is from the Grappler. Beat that if you can.